Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and as usual, we got a good one for you today, guys. Today, we're actually connecting with Dustin Garrett. Dustin is a listener who was like, man, I've got some great stories to tell, and he did not disappoint. He's actually from the Great White North, from Canada, and he has some wonderful moose hunting stories with his father. His father did pass away, and then a second story that actually kind of pieces that whole story together. It's a really beautiful 1-2 punch. So I want to thank Dustin for one, having the courage to get on the podcast and reach out to me and say, hey, I got some stories, and then two, for giving us some amazing stories. So thank you very much, Dustin. Let's go ahead and kick this thing off, guys, but real quick before we do, I just want to mention, don't forget about Vote for America. Our goal here this year, get out and vote, but not only that, take someone with you who didn't vote, and they probably align pretty well with you, but make sure that they get out there and they vote as well. Hundreds of thousands of hunters, registered hunters, did not vote last year, and we got to make sure that we get the election to do the right thing here this year. So, that being said, guys, find your one person. Now let's let Dustin tell you his stories. Thank you. All right, Dustin. Welcome to the Hunting Stories Podcast, brother. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. Of course. I talked with everyone a little bit before all the podcasts, and I told you, and I'll tell everybody again, and this goes out to the listeners. My favorite stories to hear are from the average Joe, like yourself, man. Not to say that you're average, because you're at least braver than most. Willing to reach out to me and say, hey, I've got some fun hunting stories. So Dustin, man, thank you so much for stepping out on that limb and reaching out to me, man. I really appreciate it. So let's do this. Let's kick this thing off and let you introduce yourself so the people know who they're going to hear stories from today.
Dustin Vernon. I live in Southern Ontario, Canada, and just started hunting probably 10 years ago or so now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, wasn't born and raised into it or anything like that.
What got you into it? I got to ask, because that's about the same time frame as me, man. Maybe we're meant to be hunting buddies, best buddies. We started at the same time.
Yeah, I'm 33 now. I went on my first couple hunts when I was real young, but I never got the licenses and all that stuff. I just went with a bunch of old guys, some old relatives, as a dogger, pushing deer through bushes. I think I was probably like 10 or 11 then, and they did shoot a deer while we were pushing, so that was kind of cool. And then a few years later, I think I went on a turkey hunt with my brother. I was sitting in the dirt playing with sticks, waiting for a turkey to come in. Nothing ever come in. It was
Doesn't matter how old you are. That's basically what turkey hunting is. I was sitting on the ground playing with sticks. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So it was in your family. You just didn't really pick it up until the later years.
It kind of skipped a generation, I guess, because my grandpa on my dad's side, he hunted. I think he did a bit of waterfowl. I don't know how much deer he did. I don't think much deer, but he actually, oddly enough, there's some cool pictures. He did some wolf hunts with like an old Cooey single shot shotgun.
Oh, wow.
They used dogs for the wolves. It was pretty cool. But
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's cool to have that kind of heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. So you live in Ontario, and you've only been home for 10 years. Anything else we got to know, man, about you before we jump into some stories? Or
no, I don't think so. And that's it.
Okay, perfect, man. Well, then let's just jump right into it. I know you got a list of a couple different stories for us. Why don't you set the stage?
So this is 2019, so 5 years ago.
Okay.
And I'll get a little sad here for a bit. My old man was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. So he took treatments all through 2019, and him and I started our hunting together, kind of like we both got our hunting license and all that stuff, gun license, all that stuff together. And then September 2019, my brother, he had been in a moose camp for 5-6 years already, and two of the guys couldn't make it, so we were extended an invite as guests, my dad and I.
Oh, that's awesome.
To the moose camp, and neither of us had a clue what we were doing. Like we were fresh, didn't know much about anything, but so we went as guests, and I just remember Dad had a treatment the day before we left, and
Oh wow.
when they do the chemo treatments, I don't know if it's the same for all chemo treatments, but um, they give you steroids as well, just so you can
Yep.
kind of fight the side effects, I guess, of the chemo treatment. So, and I
Yeah,
remember
the
Dad
treatment
asked
is
the
a bitch, man.
yeah
I'm sure you heard the episode about my father-in-law.
yeah
He
yeah
he
I
di-
have
he passed away from cancer,
yeah
and man, he hunted with me every year ever until he was diagnosed, and then I unfortunately never got back out into the woods with him. So you're lucky that you were able to go out again with your dad.
yeah
But yeah, that stuff's like,
yeah
yeah. I
it's
mean,
pretty,
for lack of a better term, they say like fuck cancer, man. It's
yeah absolutely
awful. It's awful.
man, it sucks.
So sorry,
No
I
no worries.
interrupted.
So I remember him joking. He asked the doctor who did the chemo treatment that day if he could give him a little extra steroids because he had a moose hunt to go to with the boys. So,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it didn't happen. Anyways, so we my brother tells us dress like or bring all your warm gear. It gets like 10 below. I don't know what 10 below is in Fahrenheit for you guys. So we're Celsius here. So
Let's see. That's like 20 something because
yeah,
0 is
nothing.
32. So
Yeah,
it's cold. It's
not
cold.
it's
It's not.
cold. Nothing too crazy, but we
Yeah.
tent. So it's a tent camp. Um, so we get all our gear ready. We got all our warm gear, blah blah blah, and we get up there, and the forecast reads the first 4 days, 24 degrees Celsius.
I've done a hunt like that in a tent. It's tough. It
Yeah.
is tough.
So I'm like chewing out my brother. Like I don't have any of my light gear here. Uh, anyways, it goes on and on. But so we had to buy. Dad and I had to buy gear. We had to buy cots. We had to borrow tents. Borrowed crossbow for him from my brother-in-law.
Hmm.
I had an old like PSE whitetail obsession bow that I think shot like 160 feet per second or something like that.
The arrow rolled out of
Yeah, I
the
remember
rest. That's funny.
everyone's sighting in their bows at camp after the trip, and these guys are all shooting their new bows, and there's like when they hit the release, there's zero delay from when they hit the release to it hitting the target, and then I shoot, and it's like,
Loading.
yeah.
That's awesome.
But, so, anyways, it's a 12-hour drive for us to the camp, and there's 7 or 8 guys. We drive through the night. We get there. Yeah, we get there in the morning. We grouse hunt our way into camp. We're shooting a couple birds. Drive over
Nice.
some sketchy logging bridges that are like 50 feet in the air and ruggedy old things. And we came across a cow moose on our way in, so it was cool. It was exciting, and we let out a couple calls to her, and we heard something crash in the bush. So we figured it
Yeah.
was either a calf or maybe a bull.
What time of year was it, if you don't mind me asking? And does that
September? So the day before would have been September 19th, I believe.
okay? So it's like the beginning of the rut, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So we do
Okay.
the archery hunt. So yeah, it's during the rut, which is I don't think I'd ever do anything different. It's to be able to call them in, something else, man. The
Yeah.
guys up there, the guys that rifle hunt, they go up and they just find fresh tracks, follow the fresh tracks, find the moose and shoot right from 400 yards away. But
yeah, and you want to get that thing drooling, ripping antlers right in your face.
Yeah, exactly. So
If you're not crapping yourself, you're not really hunting. That's what it should be.
So we get in, we get camp set up. It takes us all day. We're bagged, everyone. We drove through the night. My brother, I think he worked a night shift the night before, so he'd been up for like 36 hours or something crazy. We're like zombies. So we didn't even get to scout or anything. We noticed a couple cuts on our drive in off the main logging road. Decided the one not too far from camp was the one we'd try opening morning. And we go out. It's my brother, my dad, and I, and we go out. We're sitting for all of 5 minutes, and I look over at my brother. He's like maybe 100 yards from me. We've all got our hoods drawn in as tight as they can, going like this, waving the 1,000 mosquitoes away from her face kind of thing. And
oh, really? The mosquitoes, when it's that cold, they're still out?
So it was 24 degrees Celsius, like plus 24.
Okay, so then it's pretty warm.
Crazy hot.
Yeah, okay,
So,
okay. That makes a lot more sense. I was thinking when you had that 20-degree... okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think we were there maybe 15 minutes. I look over at my brother, and he's giving me the, like, fuck this, let's get out of here. Okay. So we pack up, we walk back to the truck, and we decide that it's going to be a drive around and scout kind of day. Stay moving, keep away from the mosquitoes kind of thing. So we found a few nice cuts. This is when my brother, he pulls up this, he had just bought like some fancy GPS. And he's showing me how it works. It's literally a blank white screen that shows us on it and a trail where he has traveled. So I guess you can get back to camp if you use it. I pull up my iPhone that didn't have any service at all, and the satellite imaging was working on it with our location. So I was able to see all the cuts, all the lakes, everything like that. So that helped a lot. We got looking around, and we found a couple nice spots. Found one cut in particular with tons of fresh sign, and decided that would be the spot we'd set up for the next few mornings. And we just hunt in the morning for 3 or 4 hours, and then in the evenings for 3 or 4 hours kind of thing, and then through the day is kind of at camp.
Are you ready to elevate your archery game? Summit Bowstrings delivers premium strings for all archers, crafted with bloodline fiber and BCY material stretched for unmatched consistency. Choose from 3 series: Hunter, Competition, and Summit. Each string is built bison tough with unique techniques for extreme durability and performance. Ideal for both seasoned hunters and target archers. Experienced strings designed to handle any challenge. Visit summitbowstrings.com and use HSP10 for a 10% discount.
Eating.
Okay. Drinking. Let me ask you about that. Only because I am going moose hunting in like 10 or so days, right? 11, 12 days, something like that. That's kind of my plan too. And I thought I was maybe being a little bit lazy, but I know they're crepuscular, right? So they're in the mornings and the evenings.
Yeah.
Do moose just, what do they do in the middle of the day? I was just assuming not much.
If I knew, I'd tell you.
Okay.
I would assume during rut, you can hunt all day long kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they're a little more active in the mornings and the evenings kind of thing. Especially when the heat that we had, right? It's cool in the mornings, cool in the evenings. During the day was so hot. I imagine they were laying down.
Yeah.
So
okay. Got it. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm predicting as well, and that's kind of how I'm expecting. I was thinking mornings and evenings we're gonna hunt those. They're not cuts because they're not, but they're like big valleys with like streams coming through that we have. And then during the middle of the day, it's gonna be at camp or kind of cruising and driving up and down these big valleys that are on the main like valley that goes through the entire area. Because I've seen moose just cruising along the side of the road, so why not cover ground when it's
absolutely when you're not doing anything. If you're not sitting, you might as well try and put a stalk on one if you can see him, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
But,
okay, I interrupted. Sorry. I'm excited about my moose hunt.
Continue. Yeah, you should be. Day 1, 2, 3, pretty uneventful, just based on the weather. Like it was just too hot. I think day 3. So the cut that we decided to hunt had like it's an old cut, so it had a little bit of overgrowth already starting in it. The spot we decided we would try had a high spot and then dipped off both directions, north and south. And so my brother, he put his 2D cow decoy up on the high spot, and that he was going to call from the high spot. Dad was on one side of the hill, I was on the other side. See if they kind of come up the cut one direction or the other. I could see my brother. I think it was day 3. I could see my brother, and he signals to me, and he's looking over the hump so I can't see, and he makes this gesture like this. And I'm thinking, holy shit, there's a moose. He called a moose, and there's a moose coming.
Yeah.
I see him put his release on his bow, I see him draw, and I'm like, oh my God, he's going to shoot a moose. 2 or 3 seconds, lets down. I'm like, what happened? Sit there for 10, 15 minutes. I'm stirring because I don't know what's going on. Then I see my brother, start to move a little more. So I'm like, okay, whatever happened, it's gone. So I crawl over to him and I'm like, what the hell just happened? And he goes, it was a lynx. I'm like, a lynx? What? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, why are you making moose
that's
antler
a
hands?
cat. If you see the lynx, you go,
For the listeners, he just licked his wrist and rubbed his head, okay? So, yeah, that's a much better gesture if you're running into cats than the moose hands.
I guess
That's
he had
funny, man.
this lynx was within like 15 yards of him or something like that. And he just drew on it. I guess I don't know if he ever intended on actually shooting it or not, but
Yeah.
or firing a warning shot or something. I don't know, but it did spot him and then eventually ran off. But yeah,
That's
so that was
awesome.
day 3, and then day 4 we in the morning we look at the. I actually. Backtrack. Day 3 on the way back to camp because we'll stop and shoot grouse on the way back because they're all over the roads. And pull over. We're shooting grouse with those like the punch broadheads kind of thing.
Yeah. I always call them bunny busters, but I'm sure that they have a different name than that. Yeah. But yeah, the blunt, someone like springs a little bit.
Yeah.
Just impact kill them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm out of the truck to shoot the grouse, get back in, and my brother's like, "Did you have unread text messages like from 4 days ago before we got here?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, we have service here. We found like a spot, like a random spot, just pulled over shooting grouse with service." So that was that turned into a nightmare when all the guys were like, "Can we use your phone and FaceTime our family?" And so that was nonstop the whole time.
Yeah.
But so we got the forecast when we got the service, and it said that night was supposed to drop nice and low and get good and cold for the morning. And sure enough, that morning, my brother and I, we said, whatever, we'll just sit together this morning. I'm sitting next to my brother in a lawn chair, literally sawing logs. And all I hear is like a horse running into the bush.
Yeah.
And I look over at my brother. We look and we see the trees waving, and it was we could just see the ass end of a moose running into the bush. And then I kind of like replayed the sound that I had heard, and I remembered hearing a crossbow go off before I heard the stomping. I'm like, I looked at my brother, like, I think Dad just shot that thing. And he goes, I think he did too. So we're sitting around, we wait a little bit, and then we kind of creep down to Dad.
How far from camp was your dad? Like how far out was he?
So he set up where he had the 2-3 days prior to. We were just, my brother and I said we would just sit together for that morning kind of thing. He went down on his own. He was about 70 yards from us.
Okay.
And so we walked down to Dad, and first of all, when we walk up to him, his hands are like this, just shaking like a leaf. And first thing we notice is his pants are undone.
What? Oh my God.
We're like, why are your pants undone? He goes, I was behind my chair taking a piss on my knees, and I heard thumping. I turned around, and this moose was charging up the cut. So he shot this moose with his pants around his knees, pretty much.
His pecker out. That's so funny.
I guess while he was pissing, he kind of crawled back to the chair, grabbed the bow, and it stopped like 25 yards in front of him, and he let him have it. My old man, not a very confident hunter. It was his first time.
Yeah.
Like he had shot the crossbow at camp, but yeah. So we asked him, how was the shot? I don't know.
I hit it. Maybe. Okay. I don't know.
So we tracked a bit of blood into like the cut itself that we're hunting is only about 50 yards wide. And so we tracked a bit of blood just to the edge of the bush line where it had walked in. And I was going to carry on looking kind of thing. We had waited maybe a half an hour, which I know isn't long enough. And my brother says to me, Dusty, just back out, leave it. He says, because they had told me stories a few years back. I guess one guy shot, and they tracked a moose and they pushed it all the way into a lake and they lost it. And so now it's like cardinal rule. Anymore unless we see the moose drop, it's like 3 or 4 hours. We don't risk it. So we go back to camp and we send a message on we had 2 sat phones or whatever, just for emergency and to talk to each other if we've shot a moose. So everyone gets back, have lunch, do all that jazz, get all geared up, get the chainsaws ready, all the 4-wheelers loaded, everything ready to go to pack out this moose. Hopefully, if we can find it. We still have no idea how the shot was. Longest 4 hours of our lives. But so we all get back to where he shot and we start tracking, and there is minimal blood, micro drips of blood, and we're like, oh boy, this isn't a good sign. We tracked those micro drips for maybe an hour and a half, and it went cold, stopped dead. We didn't see anything. We looked in the last spot of blood for probably a half an hour, and I remember looking at my dad. He was white as a ghost, like he just sick to his stomach. And I looked at my brother. I said, "Well, we have to do a grid search. We got to at least try."
Yeah.
And the kind of prankster joker of the group, his name's Steve. He goes, "Oh God, I really don't want to do that right now. It's again now midday, so it's 26 degrees." I was like, "Well, we have to try. It's this direction." So we spread out, and we're not 10 minutes into a grid search, and that guy, Steve, the joker of the group, got it. And I'm like, I'm just waiting to hear, just kidding. And I was like, I will kill this guy if he's joking with us right now.
Yeah.
I said, "Are you serious?" "Yep, I got it over here." I said, keep hollering, we'll all run towards you. And it laid down in the smallest little stream that had a little bit of water in it, kind of thing, and just expired there. So
wow. Well, it's okay. So how was the shot? Right? What did it look like when you got there?
When we got to the moose, it looked high and back a tickle. Not terrible though. And when we gutted the moose, single lung, just caught a back edge of it, kind of thing. Pulled.
Yeah, just enough.
Yeah, just enough, exactly. But
perfect.
So that was that's Dad's moose story, and it was pretty. So Dad ended up passing away 3 months after that.
Oh wow, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah,
that's tough.
Yeah.
But it's great that you have that awesome memory of that hunt.
Man.
Him running over with his crossbow and his pants down. That's such a great memory.
Yeah. Yeah. I know guys who have moose hunted for years and years and years and never bag one, and then he goes on his first one and gets one with a crossbow. So pretty incredible.
Imagine this. You're deep in the wilderness. The sun is rising, casting golden light over rugged terrain. Your heart races as you navigate through the backcountry, knowing the perfect shot could come at any moment. This is where memories are made and stories are born. Ultralight rifles are often seen as Mountain West guns, but the Ridgeline FFT from Christensen Arms breaks that mold. This stellar, lightweight rifle is your perfect companion, whether you're in the backcountry or box blind, ensuring you never have to switch between your builds. With its aero-grade carbon fiber barrel and stock, the Ridgeline FFT is incredibly lightweight, yet powerful. Thanks to its innovative side baffle brake, it reduces recoil even on a 5-pound gun shooting magnum calibers. It's like black magic. As a sub-MOA tack driver made in America, the Ridgeline FFT is for those who seek the thrill of the hunt and the joy of storytelling. Picture yourself returning to camp, Ridgeline FFT in hand, ready to share the day's adventures. Head to your local shop, pick one up. You've got to feel this rifle to believe it. Let the Ridgeline FFT be part of your hunting stories and the legacy you pass down. How was it? Was it a decent sized moose or just like an average? Was it like
a
what
36
species?
inch. So
Okay.
a little bit of paddle to it, but nothing crazy.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'll send you pictures for sure of
Okay.
everything.
But good
Uh,
eating either way.
oh yeah. We ate. We hung it, pulled out the tenderloins that night. Ate tenderloin steaks that night. The best steak I've ever had in my entire life. Probably because we worked so hard for everything and we were all
Yeah,
gassed and everything. But man, it was so good.
that's awesome. Dude, that's
Yeah.
great. And I looked up the temperature where you were was probably somewhere around 79, 80 degrees
Okay.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And then because I'm an idiot and I was thinking it was cold at the start of the story before we figured out before I actually started listening, I guess is what I should say. I wanted to tell a funny story about being in tent camping when it was actually 20 degrees, which is like negative whatever in Celsius, and we're in a tent.
Right.
I'm not sure if I've told this story before or not, and it's a quick one.
Yeah.
But
No. Go for it.
it was like 3 seasons ago, maybe 2 seasons ago. I'm with my two buddies, and my buddy, we're about to go to bed the first night, and he busts his zipper on his sleeping bag,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh, and bunch of dudes in a tent. No, I'm good, and I'm like, I'm a sissy. I'll admit it. I plan to cover my sissiness. So I've got like a silk liner in my sleeping bag. I've got a like felt liner in my sleeping
Oh
bag,
wow.
and then I've got a 0 degree bag. And then just cause like I'm like, I'd rather have more than I need than not enough. That's the way I'm
Right.
gonna look at it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know
Absolutely.
if you've seen the movie Tremors, right? It's
Yeah.
not overkill if you need it, right? So that's how I live my life. So I also have this like Pendleton wool blanket. And so I'm cozy. I'm cozy as a bug in a rug. And his thing blows up. And so he's like, no, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And I'm like, no, just take my blanket. I'm like, I am too warm. Like, just take something. Let me give you something. And he refuses it. And that night, I think it was like 15 degrees, 12 degrees. And we're in a tent that like had basically holes in it, so like there's a breeze in the tent. Like we woke up in the middle of the night to him. We had like two Mr. Buddy heaters, and he had them around him, and like just trying to like wrap his sleeping bag around him, and he was just like so miserable. When the next morning we woke up, I mean he was up hours before us because he was so cold he couldn't sleep. And which is great because he got the actual stove running for us. So I got up.
Right.
I'm like, oh, it's nice. It's actually warm in here this morning. That's great. It's because he'd been so cold all night long.
Right.
But we did the morning hunt, and then he's like, all right, guys, I'm gonna go buy a sleeping bag. And I was like, why didn't you just take all the stuff I was offering you? But yeah, you sparked that memory, and it cracks me up. It's actually, I don't know if I've mentioned that my hunting buddy's name's Little Pricker. So yeah, it was that guy. He was my buddy Little Pricker. So.
Little Pricker.
Yeah, it's
right
too funny though. We still make fun of him, and then the other guy, he bought like a negative 30 degree bag,
right.
and his is the biggest sleeping bag I've ever seen in my life. So like we couldn't have been warmer, and then he was just almost dying so cold. So it was just,
reminds me, like I never mentioned what our camp setup is like, and it's so we have like one of those big army barracks tents, and that's like our common quarters kind of. I guess so. We cook, we clean, we eat, everything like that in there, and then we do have our individual tents to sleep in. But that first year that we got invited, I didn't buy a tent because I didn't know if I'd get the invite back. So I borrowed the spare tent from the guy that runs the crew.
Yeah.
Get the fly on it. First night, it poured rain, and it rained just as much inside that tent as it was outside that tent. It did I'm assuming it was just an ancient tent. Didn't work at all. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
Dude, yeah, I've borrowed. I will never borrow someone's shit again. Here's another story. We're just going down this rabbit hole for a minute, Dustin. This was my first archery hunt ever. And I literally went on Facebook and was like, guys, my wife wants me to hunt with someone, just looking for somebody to go trounce around in the woods with.
Yeah.
Like 10 guys got back to me. A lot of them real weird. But a couple of these guys were pretty normal. And I was like, all right, let me hit these guys up. And it ended up being this group of like 6 or 7 Army guys. Credit to them, they got messed up every night and were out there hunting hard every day. But yeah, man, they were super tough. But one day we're like, all right, we're gonna backpack in to this draw, and so we hike in like 4 or 5 miles. And I'm like, well, I don't have the gear for this, and I told him that ahead of time. I was like, I don't have the gear for this. He's like, dude, we're in the Army. I got everything you need. And I was like, okay, if you got it, I'm down. So we hike in, don't see much, and we set up, and he's got me in a bivvy. So it's basically just like like a raincoat sock, right? That like fits my whole body.
Right.
And turns out the reason these draws don't have any trees is because that's where the cold settles, and it's too cold there for trees to actually grow. And like that's kind of why those areas don't have any trees, is because that's just where that coldness sits. So at least that's what somebody explained to me, or maybe I heard it on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But it got like, he set me up in like a 30-degree bag with a bivy and with all my clothes on. So like maybe like, when it's a 30-degree bag, 30 degrees, you'll stay alive is basically what that means. It doesn't mean you're gonna be comfortable at 30. It means you'll stay alive.
Right.
And so we wake up and there is frost, there's snow, everything is iced over. So we're sub 30 at this point.
Right.
And like, I remember just being the coldest I've ever been in my life. When I breathe in my sleeping bag, I would run out of air. So then I bring my head out, and it was so cold, it would go up, hit the top of the bivy, and freeze, and then drip on me. So I'm getting like cold rain dropping on me. So my choice is like cold rain and a freezing cold face, or suffocating. And I've never been so miserable. I don't remember sleeping. I'm sure I dozed off here or there for a little bit. The only smart thing I did was like when I took my boots off, I did put my bag on top of them so they weren't frozen on the inside.
Right.
But man, it took until noon for my feet to warm up. And I remember when we woke up, when I heard the first alarm go off, the guy that gave me all his gear was like, the first thing he said was, "Michael, you there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm sorry, dude. You tested the limit of that setup I gave you." And I'm like, let's just get moving. Like, I need to move my body. Like, let's go. I don't care if I got no sleep. We saw a couple elk, but nothing else happened. But that's just one of those memories of being like
miserable.
Yeah, I don't think my wife knows how close I was to death. I'm like, that's what you get when you make me find Facebook friends to hunt with. So,
I remember I had to hang my sleeping bag, mattress pad, everything, my cot even out on the trailer the next day. Luckily, we did have the hot weather because it dried up by the end of the day. But
yeah. Never borrow other people's gear. Get your own.
Exactly. Yeah. No.
Or at least test it before shit hits the fan.
Exactly.
So. Yeah. All right. We went down a weird rabbit hole there, but that's all right. That's what this is all about. What else you got for us, Dustin? Let's keep going, man.
Off of Dad's moose story, we have gone 2 times since. Yeah. The second time, no moose. And then last year we went again, and there was only 4 guys that went. And same spot. Same camp setup.
Yeah.
Camp is set up on like a creek there, so we can get our water and everything like that. We rough it, but we don't really rough it. We got all the kind of fancy tent stuff that you can have.
Yeah, but, I understand that.
Yeah. So the middle year, when we didn't get a moose, my brother did call a bull in and just couldn't close the gap on it. It come out in the cut. I said that's 50 yards across. He's comfortable shooting 50 with his bow, but when it come out, it's all the vitals were still behind like a spruce tree. He could only see its like lower back and antlers above the trees. So, and that was the closest thing. It was a cool encounter. Like, that was day 1. It grunted the whole way into us, but just didn't make it happen. So then fast forward to last year, we went again. And because Dad shot a moose there, we had the bull come in the second time. My brother and I said we have to go back to the same cut. And what was it? Day 1, we hunted, and same kind of weather again. It was like we had bug nets on. It was just gross. And nothing on day 1. Went back to camp. We actually, on our way back to camp, we saw a bunch of fresh sign right on one of the roads with like hair, blood, everything. We figured there was a bullfight, I guess, that happened.
Oh, okay. I was like, blood, huh? But bullfight makes sense.
Yeah, and it stunk. Like, you could smell the rat smell kind of all around this. Yeah. So we thought about maybe changing it up on day 2, and we convinced one another. We're like, no, we have to give Dad's spot like a couple of days of calling to see if we call something in, And sure enough, day 2, where I'm sitting exactly where Dad was when he shot the moose. I'm using my brother-in-law's crossbow that Dad used.
Yeah, your pants are off.
Pants are still on.
Okay.
My brother comes down to me to I don't know, we probably had sat for an hour, and he's like, I can't do this anymore. He's like, this is driving me nuts, these bugs. He's like, I can't hear anything. If there was a moose somewhere around us, we wouldn't hear it anyways, because all you can hear is zzz. And I was like, well, we can head back if you want. Like we can go back to camp. And he goes, no, we'll stick it out a little bit longer. He goes back up to his spot, and I hear him. He's pouring water out of a water bottle into a puddle to make it sound like a cow's peeing, all that kind of stuff. He's rubbing, scraping, making all the noise. And another hour, he comes back down to me, and he doesn't have his bow, and he just walked down to me, and he says, he's complaining again about the bugs. And I said, well, if you want to go, let's go. Like, we're not going to sit here and cry about it. And he had brought the call. Like, he's got the cedar bark call or whatever. He brought it down, and he let one out standing right next to me. And he lets it out and then looks at me and goes, and I'm like, what? He's just like, I just heard a grunt. He sprints back up to his spot, and not 45 seconds later, I see straight across in the cut, the trees start to like spread. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
And it's quiet enough that you can literally hear your heart thumping. And this young bull steps out, just its head out of the bushes, looks both ways, steps out further, sees the cow decoy, and I think it spooked it, kind of. Maybe, I don't know if it thought it was a bull or not, maybe, and it started to run away from it. So we thought right then and there, we thought it was over. We thought it was busted. My brother, he, just right on top of things, he lets out like a nice soft cow call. It stops dead in its track, turns around, looks again, and starts walking slowly right towards the cow decoy. Comes out to me at 20 yards.
Oh, man.
I'm sitting in a little turkey chair, huddled in the bush, and I'm like, oh, I guess it's not going to get any better than this.
Right.
Broadside 20 yards, and I let him have it. It like staggered probably 10 yards further away from me, but still standing broadside. So it was 30 yards now, and I could see blood just pouring out of it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is. And my brother, he had crept up behind a tree while it was standing there, and he sends one from like 70 yards with his compound. Clean underneath it. But like spooked it to like further out to even like 45 yards kind of thing. And I'm standing there. I actually have a little video of it. It kind of gets like the side wobble going and just lays down. And I'm like, perfect. That's it. It's done. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be taking a video. Maybe I should be reloading the crossbow right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I will never make that mistake ever again. I will have an extra bolt or an arrow ready to go right away. But
how long does it take to I've never even touched a crossbow. How long do those things take to reload?
If you're quick enough, 15, 20 seconds, I guess.
Okay.
But it's
so
like
your brother wasn't thinking, oh man, I got to put another one in it because it's still on his feet. He's just thinking, yeehaw! Like I'm shooting an arrow at that moose.
It's not a real graceful reload like it is with a compound, right? It's
okay.
It's you got to get the little string on there, put your foot in it, and pull it back. Then put the bolt on the top kind of thing. And as I was pulling it back, the moose saw me, got up, and walked into the bush.
Gotcha.
Exactly where Dad's moose had ran into the bush. And I'm like, I got up right away after I knew it was, I don't know, 30, 40 yards in the bush. And I started walking towards my brother, like shaking my fist, like I smoked it. I knew I did. And same thing, because we didn't see it fall or go down and expire. We back to camp for breakfast and all that jazz, and get the 4-wheelers loaded up, and we get back into the cut, and very, very similar to my dad's. We see, like, I saw the pool of blood where I could see it bleeding like 30 yards from me, but beyond that, like micro drops again. I'm like, oh my God, there's no way. Like
Do you think
I
that's
felt
because of just the way that moose bleed, or do you think that's the
so.
broadhead you put on the bolt, or what do you think?
We do use fixed, so they don't make a big hole, I guess, or a big cut.
Okay.
But I do know after spoiler alert, we found it.
Yeah, I guess.
But
Especially how with a shot sounded from the 20 yards. But yeah,
the
keep going.
shot was double lung, but it was a little high, I guess, and I guess they just basically plug up and bleed internally then, like after that.
Okay.
So uh, yeah, so same thing, micro dot or micro bits of blood, and we're following, and goes pretty much cold again. We circle back, start looking on the blood trail again, make our way a little bit further. I remember looking at my brother saying, "I'm gonna puke." Like I felt sick to my stomach. He's like, "What?" He's like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, I feel like I made a bad shot, and we're not gonna find this thing." He's just like, "Remember how Dad felt a couple years ago?" Like
Yeah.
relax. We will just take our time, and hopefully we'll find it. And very, very similar. This thing died like 30 yards from where Dad's died in this bush.
That's awesome, Dustin,
Yeah,
man. That's
we
too cool.
to the point where so when we drag Dad's out, it's pretty thick. You take the chainsaw with you. You do have to cut down a handful of trees so you can drag it out. We like to get them back to camp whole and hang them there, and then and process them or whatever. So um, we cut down probably 15, 20, I don't know, 3-inch trees when we dragged Dad's out. We didn't have to cut down as many trees to drag mine out because we had cut those trees down 3 years, 4 years prior.
Yeah.
So it was pretty wild. Yeah.
That's so cool that you had such a similar hunt to your dad's hunt. That's a really
Yeah.
cool experience. Were
Yeah.
you and your brother at this point just like all teary eyed?
Yes. I think I've only hugged my brother like twice in my entire life, and that was one of them. And yeah, so we
Yeah,
were.
I'm a hugger. I want to hug you right now, man. Like that's an awesome story. I'm
Yeah,
getting glassy eyed here. This is
yeah.
great.
No, it was pretty cool. So yeah, but
That's amazing, man. And that was last year that you did that?
that was last year. Yeah, and
Okay.
that bull ended up. It was like I think it was a 40-inch, so it was a little bit bigger than my dad's.
Yeah.
But mine grew complete. Like I'll send you. We have the two skulls hanging in my brother's shop. His grew. I guess they can grow sometimes with some like paddle to them, or
Okay.
they can grow when they're young, very spiky. I guess.
Okay.
So mine grew. Mine looks like kind of like a deer or an elk rack almost.
You're gonna send me this photo and it's gonna be like a mule deer. And I'm like, Dustin, buddy. Well, that's cool, man. That's cool. I've actually so last year hunting elk, we saw I forget what the term is called. I want to say like emaciated, but I know that's not it. But it's something similar to that. But we saw a bull that had first glassing it up. I'm like, something's wrong with that bull, and I thought an antler had been snapped off.
Right.
So like one side, he was like a 350-inch bull, and I'm like, oh man, he was a monster. And then I realized his other side wasn't snapped off; it was like paddled out like a moose antler. So his right side was the paddle, and his left side was just this giant elk antler. And I don't remember what we called him. We named him something filthy. King something. I won't repeat it on the podcast. But he was a monster, and it was super cool to see that. In fact, I could get in touch with those guys. The only video I've ever seen of it was like putting an SD card into my phone and like a really shitty version of it when they got another camera and they got like high def video of it. So I want to see what that guy actually looked like, because he was mean sounding. He just wouldn't come across. He wouldn't come across the 400-yard valley. Weird. But yeah, it was still a fun hunt.
Well, so you're thinking like old bull then, or
super old.
Right.
In fact, they said that one of their buddies had killed a bull in that same unit a couple of years before that had that same kind of maybe palmated, or I don't know what it's called, but
like
it had a similar,
right?
Yeah. And so they're thinking that maybe that there's some kind of genetics in that unit for like the big bull, that guy is spreading his DNA and making these weird freak bulls. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's on the bucket list for my brother. So my brother's the big hunter. He hunts like crazy, but elk is on our bucket list. I don't know if we'll ever be able to afford it or not, but hopefully.
Oh, you'll do it, man. You'll make it happen.
Yeah.
All you got to do is just decide to do it, and then you can get out and do it. Just
Yeah.
pick a
It'll
season
be
and make it happen.
yeah. I got a kid on the way now, so it'll be a little bit later down the road, I think, if it happens.
That does change things.
Yeah, it changes
that is an
things.
understandable delay.
Yeah.
All right, Dustin, what else you got for us, man? I don't know if you have any more moose stories. I think you said you had a turkey story.
That's it for moose. Yeah, I got one pretty funny turkey story. It's so turkey's my favorite, hands down. I love turkey hunting. That's like my bread and butter. I love that.
I love it too, man. I just wish you got more than like 2 meals out of it.
Yeah,
like that's my main problem with turkey hunting.
We've been doing a lot of pot pies, turkey pot pies with the meat, and it is dynamite. So good.
Yeah. Jeremiah Dottie, who was on my podcast, the Field to Plate guy, he had a recipe for a KFC bowl. Oh my God.
I remember I listened to that episode.
Yeah, that was good. I made that. I talked to him and then I killed the turkey a couple weeks later and I made that and sent it to him. He said I used too much cheese, but I don't think there's such I don't think there's such a thing.
No,
but the recipe as a whole was just out of this world, man. So yeah.
Right on. So turkey hunting where I am, and I do a lot of turkey hunting around my hometown, little town called Woodville. But so I have a lot of friends and family who are farmers, and so I get a lot of permission to a lot of properties. And as far as turkey, like I'll go out for the morning sits. Actually, now we go down to my brother's way every opener, and we usually shoot 1 or 2 down there. But for the most part, my turkey hunts like opportunity hunts. Drive around with my gun in the truck, some camo, and check all my spots. And if I see a bird, I'll try and put a stock on them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And found just actually the nearest property to town. Found 2 jakes on hens. The property itself is like a very tiny gravel pit elevated in the middle of a farm field.
Yeah.
The field that time of year had cut beans. There was beans on it, and they were cut. Anyways, the 2 jakes are on these 2 hens, and I had let out a couple calls, and they just weren't having it at all. They didn't care at all. They were staying with the hens. And that's when I'm trying to come up with a plan, and I hear a car coming up the gravel pit behind me, loud as can be, and it's a buddy of mine. And he saw your truck from the road. I thought I'd come up here and see what you're doing. Are you hunting? I'm wearing full camo, gun on my shoulders, 2 decoys in my hand. I'm like, well, I was hunting.
You're like, no, I was just going for a hike with my stuff, getting ready for the season.
I told him he's hunted a couple times, so he knew a little bit about it. I told him, I was like, just peek your head over that hill and you'll see them. There's the 2 jakes are out there. And he's just like, oh shit, sorry, man. And I was like, it's all right. I think we need to get your car out of here though, without you turning it back on. It's got like no exhaust on this car.
Oh.
So both him and I get this thing started to push, and he runs and climbs in the driver's seat and backs out of the gravel pit. We're in a neutral with the car off.
Okay.
So he's gone now.
For some reason, I'm thinking of like the guys from Letterkenny on that one. Just like he would fit in with that crew, I think.
So Letterkenny is only like 2-3 hours away from me.
Yeah. There he is. I bet your buddy's from there. So.
Yeah. So I'm trying to devise a plan how to get to these jakes or pull these jakes off the hens, and I creep around the corner, and they're doing their thing. Actually, they're on the hens. They're breeding them.
All right.
And
next generation.
I had a turkey, or I had a hen and a jake decoy, and I gun over my shoulder, and I started army crawling. And this gravel pit kind of had like hills with gaps in between leading to the field. So I army crawl through the gap just into the field and plant the 2 decoys, get my gun off my shoulder. I'm watching them do their thing. And when they finish, they start walking towards the bush away from me. They're about 150 yards away or something like that.
Yeah.
And I let out a couple of calls. The two jakes turned around, saw the two decoys, and started darting right towards me. I surprised myself. I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe that worked. But so I pulled the gun up and getting ready, and they were sprinting, like coming in on a rope, and shot the one on the left. Thought the one on the right would just turn and run away, and the one on the right came over and started beating up the dead one. I had never seen that. I had never seen that before.
I've heard that happening, but I've never talked to someone that's had that happen.
Yeah, just and wailing on it with its spurs, with its beak, like everything. I watched it for probably 3 or 4 minutes, and then I remembered my other brother who lives nearby here. He had Dad's gun, and this is after Dad passed away. He had Dad's gun and wanted to shoot his first turkey with Dad's shotgun.
Yeah.
So I'm laying in this field, pull out my cell phone behind these decoys.
No way.
Call my brother. I'm like, hey, do you want to come and shoot a turkey? He's like, yeah, I do. Where are you? I told him which field I was at. He knows the field. He's like, what do I need? What camo do I need? I was like, grab the gun and get here as soon as you can. You don't need any camo, nothing. Like, just get here as soon as you can. So it took him probably 4 or 5 minutes to get there. And
no way.
he crawled up behind one of the hills that I was laying in between. And so we kind of had to do like the loud whisper to talk to one another. And I said, let me know when you're ready. And because it was still pecking and spurring at the dead one, so he wouldn't be able to shoot it. We needed its attention, its head up.
I wonder what that is. Like, what is the fight or flight? Like, why do they attack other dead turkeys?
I think it's just they're dumb, and it's like a mating season thing. Like he saw another male in distress and was like, "Now's my chance to
take him out,
beat it up." Yeah.
Interesting.
So my brother tells me he's ready. He's laying down on the top of this hill, and I bet you I screamed on my call for 2 minutes, and this thing would not stop beating on the dead bird. And like to the point, my calls didn't even sound good at all. I was screaming into the thing just to try and get it to lift its head just for half a second. And I think I ended up gobbling. I kind of know how to gobble into the mouth calls. I gobbled, and that's when it head up, and boom. And brother dropped his first turkey, and he didn't have to work for it at all.
That's so funny.
He just got a phone call from his couch, and got to come.
Yeah. Wearing his like ding dong like sweatpants, like hosting sweatpants or whatever.
Sweatpants, and I'll send you pictures because he said to me, he's just like, we get back to his place to take pictures with the two of us, and he says, let me go change. I want to put my camo on. I was just like, why? Poser.
Yeah, right.
But
so how beat up was your bird from of course you shot shredded. It, right?
This thing was on it for almost 10 minutes. Yeah, it was shredded. Like it had feathers plucked off it, and at that point I had shot a handful of turkeys, so I didn't care too much. Anytime when I shoot a jake anymore, usually I keep the fan for like a decoy or something like that. But but
that's crazy, man.
And
that's so weird.
That was exactly to the date, a year after Dad shot his last turkey.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
there's some synergy to your stories, and I like it, man. Right? I like it. So your dad's definitely there looking down on you boys.
Absolutely.
Going, why is he wearing sweatpants? He shouldn't be wearing any pants. That's what your dad's thinking.
Yeah, that's how you hunt. Yeah. So.
Oh man, Dustin, that was fun. Well, dude, these are great stories, and I love how they all tie together. Mm-hmm. You got any more, or is that what you got prepared for us today? I know you got a lot in general, and we'll have you back on in the future. But is that what you got prepared for us today?
That's all I had for you today. I'd like to maybe come on some another time, and share some more. I got lots, and maybe I'll have some more after this wolf hunt. Man, what is it? 2? When do we go? No, about 3 weeks, I guess we leave for this wolf.
That's awesome.
Hunt.
Yeah, man. Let me know how that goes. I'd definitely love to have you back on. Maybe your brother could jump on with you, and then he'll fact check these stories for us. That's always important. But man, this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed all of your stories, and it got me even more excited for my moose hunt, which is coming up here shortly, Dustin.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I don't know. Do you want to tell the people where they can find you, or do you want to just walk off into the sunset?
I don't even. I can just walk off into the sunset. I don't think I even know my Instagram handle offhand.
Okay. Easy enough, brother. All right, man. Well, thank you so much. To you listeners, make sure you guys, if you got some stories like Dustin, please reach out. We'd love to hear them. But Dustin, man, thank you so much. Thank you for reaching out, being brave, and sharing your stories, man. These are obviously special stories. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it. Another couple stories in the books. Again, I want to thank Dustin for coming on the podcast, having the bravery to tell and share his stories. I know you're not a hugger, Dustin, man, but your stories had me a little teary-eyed. I wanted to give you a hug when you were shooting in the exact same spot, using the same weapon, shooting the same species. It's a pretty cool story. So thank you, sir. I really do appreciate it. Now we'll let you walk off into the sunset. To you listeners, again, vote for America, guys. Find one other person to go out with you. Take them, drive them, buy them lunch, whatever. Just have them vote. I feel like your priorities and your thoughts on who you should vote for probably will align. So don't necessarily tell them who to vote for, but get them out there, especially in Colorado, because we need to, this is what I will say, is we need to stomp this mountain lion hunting ban. But that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you have a story, make sure you reach out to me. Beyond that, I don't know, go ahead and review my podcast or something. That more people will find us that way. Thanks, guys. Now get out there and make some stories of your own.